Hello, everybody. How are you guys doing today? Today is another wonderful, great, and amazing day in Quantum Family. We have a very, very special guest with us. You guys may know him as Nikki, but more likely you will know him or know her as Faith, Rise of Faith. So, hello, Faith. How are you doing today?
I'm doing very, very well. I'm very blessed and very grateful to be here.
Awesome, awesome. Well, thank you for being here. And as you guys know, Quantum Family is a community that focuses on personal growth. And we are three writers that we got together so we can share our journeys and share the journeys of those of our guests. So let me go ahead and introduce Diane Peñalosa. Diane Peñalosa is a writer as well. She has written not one, not two, but three books about motherhood. She was born in Mexico, but now she resides in Spain. So welcome, Diane. How are you doing today?
Thank you, Javier. Hello, Debbie. Hello, Faith. I am extremely pleased to have you with us.
Awesome. And I'm also going to introduce Mrs. Debbie DiMaggio. Mrs. Debbie DiMaggio, she's a real estate professional that works from Beverly Hills to San Francisco. And I know because we work together in Beverly Hills. She's a writer, she's a philanthropist. And her newest book is Beauty at Any Age. In Beauty at Any Age, she shares with us that beauty is just an attitude, and there is the book itself. So welcome, Debbie. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great. Thank you so much. It's a beautiful smokeless day. So anytime it's a blue sky, I can see the water from here, the bay. I'm very thankful for all that smoke. And hi, Diani, how are you? Javier and Faith, I'm so excited to have you on today. I will get started if that's okay. So we didn't say Faith, Nikki is transgender, and there's so many different ideas about what that means. And so I'm really excited. We had a quick conversation before, and it's very different than what I thought. And I'm always still confused because when someone becomes a transgender, like the one question that I didn't mention is like, if you're become a transgender, who are you dating? Because it gets so confusing to me. If you're gay, I know that. If you're straight, I know that. But if you're a transgender, then it really blurs and becomes very confusing. So I wanted to start with that question.
Awesome.
And so I just want to clarify. So I am someone who identifies as a person who identifies from the trans experience, and okay. That also but I would consider myself a non-binary trans person. And so, as a matter of fact, I consider myself a cisgender non-binary trans person, which means that I personally agree with the gender that I was given at birth. That also means that I do identify from the trans experience. And that also means that I'm also someone who identifies who doesn't fall in the spectrum of either male or female. And there are many people like me that are out there but are less known and that less speak about their own personal experience. In regards to what you're saying about when it comes to dating, what I've understood is that when I added trans as one of my, another identifier for myself, when it came to dating, I did look at how it may change. It may look like, oh, if I'm a transgender woman and I'm dating a man who identifies as straight, then that means that I technically would be considered straight. If I'm dating a woman, then that would make me technically a lesbian. So in the grand scheme of things, for the sake of definitions, I would embody all the different spectrums of whether it's gay, lesbian, or bisexual based off of who I may be seeing. So I personally don't hold dear to say, oh, I'm gay or I'm straight or I'm bisexual, because that type of dialogue for me just seems to be too cumbersome for me to have to go and always talk about. So I personally consider myself someone who's a pansexual, which is someone who can fall in love with either a man or a woman, and that has nothing to do with whether they identify as transgender or not.
Got it. Yeah, it's very confusing. It's very hard. I'm sure it's hard for you too. I mean, it's just very confusing on what we know. When did you know that you were different? Were you young? Were you, older? When did you know you were different? And what were your thoughts around that? Now, obviously, you are who you are, but when did you evolve into letting everyone else know? And how was that for you?
I believe it was in middle school when I like kind of like when I had different feelings that of emotions of that. Okay, there's these natural attraction for someone whom has a male perspective, and based off of what society was telling me, I was told that I was a male as well. So that means that from society's definition, I had gay tendencies, or that I was, I was like, oh, I'm acknowledging that I must be gay. And so, when you're in middle school, of course, you wouldn't embark on any of these feelings, or didn't embark on trying to figure out, oh, like, how can I navigate this? I was living in a very small town in Texas, so it was very conservative. So, and at that time, I didn't really feel the need to try to like understand where this is coming from. So I kind of like, I guess, just let it be in the back of my mind about like, oh, this is like another aspect of me that I'm aware of, this heightened awareness of myself. And so I just allowed that to just be for what it was until I was at a place in my life to where I can maybe learn more about it, educate myself on it, and maybe connect myself with individuals who may share the same experience as me. So then I can allow myself the support system that's needed for me to try to understand what I was going through.
Yeah, that's amazing.
Wow, awesome. That's actually very, very true. Please, Diane, go ahead.
Could you share with us why you decided to rename yourself Faith? What is the story behind?
So, when I started hormone treatment, and that was relatively around like 2015, 16, around that. This was like after the military. And so I'm one of those people that would have an aspect of like all or nothing type mentality. And I think that what I wanted at that time was I wanted to embody the whole experience. And so I think that I knew that I wanted to change my name, but I wanted to change my name to something that I knew that was more of an embodiment of who I was as a person, but also the embodiment of others around me. And so the original name that I chose was Faith Lynn, which meant the faith within me. And so that in itself created a foundation of understanding for myself that as long as I continue to always have the faith within myself, that I can do and achieve anything that I set my mind to. And so Faith just became short version of Faithlyn. And so it has just like it just kept with me, like, so it's like from, that's how I introduced myself to some of my friends. But also through the art of drag is where I was able to express my female perspective very comfortably, without fear. And so with that, I had came up with a drag name, which was Faith Kills. And so with that, faith, to me, when you have faith, it kills anxiety, it kills self-doubt, it kills all the negative connotations that can prevent a person from being able to make conscious choices and to prevent them from gaining the opportunities that they would want in life. And so that's how that came about.
Wow, that is super, super, super interesting. Well, I personally know Faith, from a long time ago, and I know that you have a fascinating story. I mean, you have been in the Army, from the Army actually all the way up to these scenarios in the West Hollywood club scene. And I know because I've seen you in there. By the way, great performer. Just gonna throw it out there. RuPaul, when you watch this, watch for this one, because you know what? He is one of the All-Stars winner, and I know that for a fact. And I'm already saying that. So I know for a fact he will be one of them. But of course, my first question to you would be, if you have a chance to give an advice to the 10-year-old Nick at the time, or Nikki, what advice will you have to your inner child, to your child?
I would have to say to be patient with yourself, and to be really careful about how you, to make sure that you're finding positive resources that will help you figure out like your newfound enlightenment of yourself. I find that if it would definitely have to be prepared. Preparation is the key. So to be prepared for a whirlwind of experiences, that we call life. That I would tell myself that you will join the Navy to help. It was actually the Navy. So just want to clarify, it was the Navy, not the Army. So no worries. You will join the Navy to help facilitate resources that will soon aid in the backstory of your life. I would acknowledge that you will be the beacon of hope, faith, and change for the world. So don't tell myself to not be too nervous for that. To live fearlessly and walk confidently in everything that I do. I would tell myself to allow others to see your passion so that others can help you materialize them. Don't be afraid to wear my emotions on my sleeve, because that will allow me to be able to allow others to be more connected with me. Have fun with my creativity, because it will soon be my business card, which will allow me opportunities that will change the trajectory of my life. Also, I would also let myself know that my body is going to go through physical changes constantly, and allow those experiences to be able to allow me to be relatable to the masses, and also create a spiritual foundation that will allow me to realize the real meaning of life. And so that is what I would tell my 10-year-old self.
Oh, that's so sweet. So Debbie, please go ahead.
Well, you just seem like you have it all together. So it's like it's something a little.
No.
You're like, you seem like you're like, I have it all down and I'm together and this is easy.
It's not. It's far from that. Yeah. It literally is far from that. Yeah. Being who I am has been somewhat of a burden. Like, yeah. Someone who embodies all of this it's more of a burden. But I've learned to compartmentalize what I'm going through, because I'm understanding that what I'm going through isn't about me, and that and that someone else distinctively created me for a reason. Mm-hmm. and I know that it's bigger than myself. So I cannot afford to not be my best self. I can't afford to not articulate my passions, because I know that there's people with more resources than I was given to want to help me make those a reality. And so I think that I've done this a lot. I've done this a long time. I've been doing this for a long time, and it took me a long time to get to where I'm at, because I may look like I'm in my 20s, but I'm not.
I was just gonna ask, yeah. How long have you, how old were you when you transformed? And
well, see, I think we also have to get away from this type of language, because when someone identifies as trans, it's not necessarily like we're transforming. It's not like it's a video game, or that, it's a person, it's a way of life. It's about navigating what we have personally and trying to figure out how can we navigate in this world to create a level of happiness and stability in a world that looks at us as someone different, and looks at us as people that sometimes where people don't understand us. So when you're moving through life, for me, I've understood that people look at me with this level of confusion and misunderstanding. I had to accept that although I have a level of understanding of who I am, I know who I am as a human, but others don't see that. And so what I've had to also understand is that people are going to look at you and perceive your life based off of whatever it is, the narrative that they've created in their own head, just because they're trying to come up with they're trying to understand what they're seeing. And so for them, they have to articulate that enough to themselves, especially if they're not brave enough to want to come and ask you personal questions and ask you, how do you want to be addressed, or want to ask you something that they may be not sure about. We live in a world where people would rather not say anything and come up with their own narrative than actually just asking questions, just articulated questions, to try to find out more about a person. And so I think that I just had to understand that people are people, and that their lack of understanding can also be just their lack of ignorance, and that I can't force who I am on them, but I also cannot expect a lot from people. If people are misunderstood about something, I feel like most people are smart enough to understand that if they want to know more about something, that they can just take the necessary opportunity to learn about a demographic of individuals. If they choose to, but not go into it in a very ignorant perspective, and not be willing to offer a level of understanding.
I don't think it's, so I guess when did you know, that was the question which you've answered, but I think what happens from what I know personally, I know someone personally, well, two people personally, and those two people came out in their, I would say 50s is my guess. But so I grew up with a gal in town, and her dad and mom got divorced, and the dad was very handsome. And people thought when they split up that he was having affairs with other women. And only now in the last, he's probably actually close to 60 or 70 actually now. So all those years people thought when we were growing up he was having an affair. That's why he divorced his wife, and I think he was with another woman at that time, but then he's now come out so much later. I mean, I feel bad that it took him that long to come out, because now he's in his 60s or 70s, and then he came out that, you know, he was cross-dressing all that time. He, you know, told his children, who are my age and I'm in my 50s, you know, so it's like, I'm sad for him that it took him that long, but I guess he was already living that transformation. He was already transformed in his own mind. He just didn't come out publicly until much later. Same with Bruce Jenner, who I know is Bruce, my cousin, my mom's cousin, first cousin, Coach Bruce. I met him when I was young. I was 14. And I remember going back, and after he came out as Caitlyn, I always remembered when he was 14, he just seemed kind of feminine to me, and he was very quiet. Back then he had just won his the decathlon and stuff early on, and then later he became a celebrity in TV. But he and then, so, you know, it's for him, I'm so glad he came out, just because he was living that life, you know, just he was living, you know, it must be torture to live that way. And then finally you come out, and it's so great. It's when I've had other friends who, you know, came out as gay, and it was like, oh my God, it was like, you're so much happier. Like, they were married with kids and so wound. And then when they come out, it's like, I'm so happy for you, you're living you. And then they look so much better because they're happier and they're not trapped. So I guess, yeah.
I experienced that. I experienced that level of enlightenment with myself, and understood that my level of expression on the outside, for societal purposes, they like to see people in a very binary expression, for it to make sense to them. For me, it makes sense for me to be able to fluctuate my expression for multiple of reasons. Number one, there's a level of safety that's involved. We are in a world where people who are trans are targeted. I've learned that my purpose is higher than myself. And so I know that I wanted to make sure that I give myself the opportunity and the highest degree of chance for me to make my dreams a reality, to help a large marginalized group of individuals, and to make something that would outlive me. I don't have to express myself female physically on a consistently daily basis for me to understand who I am as a human. I just know when you are confident with who you are, there's nothing that one must do. It's the society who is the ones who are like, oh, are you gay? Are you not gay? Are you trans? If you're trans, aren't you supposed to look like this? Aren't you supposed to be this? Those are those expectations that other people have put on themselves, of their expectations of others. Most trans people who identify as trans may also do express either a binary expression. But I'm just one of those individuals who my expression is not that. And so, but that doesn't make me less trans than a person who physically changes their body. And it doesn't make me more trans if I don't, you know, or.
I had no idea. I expected you to come on in a big, beautiful wig and like the whole thing.
Yeah.
So
I agree. I agree with you. You know, it's a journey. It's totally a journey. And I know, because I went through the same journey myself, you know. And to be 100% honest, the acceptance, and you talk about acceptance, which is very, very important. When I wrote my book, you know, that's what I did. I was talking about acceptance, because it took me a few years to accept myself. And once I accept myself, it took me a little longer to actually love myself. And it was until I started really, really, really loving myself when I saw a difference around me, you know. And everybody goes through a different journey. But please, Diane, go ahead with the next question.
I personally love spirituality. I am sure that there is a reason why we are passing through this early life. With this in mind, I firmly believe that we all have chosen certain characteristics based on our individual life mission. Do you identify with this ideology, or do you think it was just a matter of luck?
I definitely do believe that my being and me being here on earth was decided by a higher source, and I have no idea why and what it would when involved for my creation. And so early on, when I identified as, at the beginning of the spectrum as gay, as a gay man, none of this level of enlightenment, whether it was something that I tapped into. This wasn't a type of awareness that I was. But through my spiritual journey, that's when I've understood the real meaning of life, which was beyond what it is that one would see on a regular basis. And so what I've learned is that spiritually is creating a spiritual foundation for myself and being able to allow that to be what fuels my actions, what fuels like why the passions of the projects that I create, because that in itself is what allows me to be who I am and to be who I am comfortably. And so I guess on one hand, I guess I would agree to that ideology, because I don't think it's a form of luck, because I think it's just a form of an awareness and being able to be in tune with your own biorhythms of who you are and the world and how we relate to, and the relationships we have with people, places, and things, and how we can create this positive aspects and the energies of the exchange.
Wow, that's super, super, super enlightening. Now, another question that I had, like for instance, and I can only talk from my own experience. You know, I'm Mexican. I was born and raised in Mexico. So let's face it, in Mexico, we don't have a large trans community. We don't even have a large Black community, to be 100% honest. So now that we are going through Black Lives Matter, BLM, which to me is very, very important, and Trans Lives Matter, which is super important, you know, I started investigating and learning more about it. So I guess my question for you is, how can we make sure that you are supported and or safe? Because this is a matter of safety now.
So, so some of the ways that I know that how people that are non-person of color or non-person of color, what they can do is you can invest resources and time into creating bills and laws that will allow for marginalized groups of individuals to have resources that will help them have livelihoods and live sustainable lives that will allow them to be able to be like amazing citizens of the world. I feel like what needs to happen is that people need to gather, like non-Black and people of color, to dismantle white supremacy and the laws that don't allow for fair disbursements of resources that can help the livelihoods of non-white individuals. These are the people that are marginalized. So that's why I say non-white individuals, because the reality of it is people that are white have resources that were naturally given to them on a higher scale. It's a known fact. So, yeah. But also giving financial resources to individuals and organizations like the Trans Fund LA, who has just received a lot of self-defense kits that they were given out after an incident that just happened in Hollywood. Another way is, like, I just started a GoFundMe page, and with that GoFundMe page that was specifically designed to create financial resources to create a device that will help individuals get law enforcement and medical services care in a much more timely fashion. So when you think of like Life Alert, but for just on a larger scale of individuals for all ages. And so it's being able to track when a person is in distress and be able to give GPS locations of where they're at so that they can have medical services being given to them with a faster response time. And so that's one of the projects that I'm personally working on, but also I'm also creating other projects that would help give resources to our community, whether it's homeless services, where it is also services, like as in creating like another form of a goodwill. So I thought of creating another goodwill called Faithland's Closet, which would be an organization that would house a lot of, that would sell newly touched items to the community, but also have a direct connection to the community, to where people in our community can come and get free wigs, free clothes, free shoes, free resources, and free like makeup classes, of that nature. So it was about, it's basically about being able to have resources that would help give back to the community in an area that is really needed. For me, for an example, I want to be able to have resources to buy an apartment complex that will house people that are homeless, an apartment complex that will have like food services that was given to them. You know, it's like I can go down the list of all the things that I've written down over this pandemic, of like, basically it's like a mini business plans, because I did this thing, let me tell you about it briefly. It's called 21 Days of Abundance. And on the third day of abundance, you have to write down, you have to write down how are you going to accumulate this abundance. And through this 21 Days of Abundance, there's a mantra that happens, there's a chant that's happens, and there's a prayer that happens. And with that, I wrote down all the different ways that I can help facilitate creating opportunities that will help the community. And so I think that it's just about finding resources that are aiding and helping the marginalized group of individuals that need it the most.
Wow.
How do we find, what's the GoFundMe page called?
Oh, so it's called Save Me.
Okay, perfect. Maybe we'll do this. We're gonna put
the campaign.
GoFundMe.
So the campaign is called Save Me Distress Device.
Okay.
And it's the first campaign that I have. And so I'm going to put up another campaign later in the week, or but I just haven't facilitated yet. And so what I had to do is I had to focus on one project at a time, because I'm one of those people who have a lot of ideas, and I know that it's like, oh, I can start an e-commerce site, and the e-commerce site will bring in financial resources that will help, you know, maybe build something over here. And so shortly, I can tell you, last week was my birthday, Wednesday, and that Wednesday I had a meeting with a company called Volunteers in Medicine. And what they are a nonprofit business that helps people create free clinics around the world. And so I found out with that meeting, that Zoom meeting that we had, of what I needed to facilitate to help opening a free clinic here in Los Angeles. And so that's something else that I'm working on. So it's like, if it's not one project, it's something else, but I know that I have to just keep moving. And like I said, I have to make sure that I articulate my passions to the world so that they can help materialize them. And people don't know if I don't say anything. And so I think that if I could have a wish, it would be to facilitate a team of individuals who would help me materialize each of these projects that would aid in helping the marginalized group of individuals that need it the most.
Wow, well, thank you very much. You can please send us the link. We're gonna make sure that we put that link into our comments, you know, to GoFundMe link, so we can start just raising money and helping, because it's so important for us to make sure that we are supporting and that we are engaged and that we are with the gay community, with the Black community, with the trans community. Let's just get together with, you know, as people, as human beings. So please, Debbie, I know you want something to say. Please go ahead.
Well, I was going to just say that you said you didn't have, you said you weren't sure why you were brought here. Clearly, it's so clear. You are so clear. You are here to help people. You are here to create what you're already starting to create. That's your purpose. That is your mission. And it's very clear, and it's happening, and it's going to happen. So yes, we'll definitely be sharing all of that. Go ahead.
I just want to add to that. You know what? You're right. I misspoke when I said I wasn't sure why I was here. I wasn't sure why I was created, so to speak, but I realized why after I came to this level of enlightenment. I was like, hold on. I had to understand, like with faith, we all have faith. We all have something that we must believe in. And sometimes I know it can be very difficult in times of trauma, in times of despair, in times of loneliness. I've been homeless before. I've not known where my next meal is going to come from. I've struggled with drug addiction, alcohol addiction. So it's like, but I've learned to be able to compartmentalize and to be able to deal with all of these things that I may have dealt with in the past. But I've always realized in the darkest times of my life that these are just like the weather, and that it's only a moment in time, and that what I'm going through is not about me. It's not about me. Everything that I went through before, it's about other people and allowing myself to be relatable to them. That's why I had this trans experience, because it allows me to, I can go and speak to a trans person right now and help facilitate, how can I help you better than someone who is not trans, because they're not going to know how to come to them in a place of relatability. And so that's what I find is very, very beautiful and special and unique about me, because I'm able to navigate in the cisgender gay community, and I can navigate in the trans community, because it allows me to have more access. And for me, I was given, as we see it, male privilege is a level of access. Why would I if I physically change my body and become a physically transgendered woman, I will be giving up access that was given to me by a higher power. And I don't want to I don't have the desire to do that, because I don't have the need to do that.
Right. No, it's awesome. Your purpose is extremely clear, and you're already working your work. So we live in California. So when I look at you, or, you know, I don't see anything other than a guy sitting in front of me. That's what I see. So we live in California. So you know, it's so disheartening to hear that even in California, negative things happens to all the people it happens to. But like, you are from Texas, and then there's transgenders, I'm sure, throughout the country, I mean, the world, but let's say even just the United States. What do you tell to that person sitting in Oklahoma or Texas? And what are some things you could say to them, like, come to California, like, you know, not everyone can come, but what are 3 things you can tell them that could give them hope or give them a direction? Because I'm sure those people are struggling inside, trying to make it not be, but it is, because you are who you are. It's, you know, and like you said, it's not like I mean, it's hard, it's a burden, but you are that, so you have to accept it. So what could you tell someone, or what could someone who comes across those people, what could we do to help? What could they do to help themselves?
What can someone do to help themselves is, number one, to be kind to yourself. Love yourself, like to really, really be kind to yourself, and allow yourself to truly understand what you're feeling, and to understand yourself, and understand what you are feeling inside, and understand that what you're feeling is natural, and that it's to don't rush into like, don't rush into feeling like I need to explore this. I need to, like, you know, go at this as fast as I can. When we have this level of enlightenment, as I like to call it, I think you have to sit with it for a while and see, like, okay, this was given to me for a reason. And so I would recommend that people do their research. And so that it allows them to help them understand more about themselves. The more that we can learn about ourselves, the more that we can navigate around with the people around us, and that will also allow us to be able to facilitate the relationships moving forward. If people are in a small town that does not provide a huge network, a welcoming support system of the same sharing experiences, then I think that what they should do is to look online so that they can try to find an online network, especially now that we're in this pandemic, then only online networks is going to be the best fit. And there's tons of online networks, and they can Google me, they can go to Instagram and go to Rise of Faith, and they can message me if they would like to, if they have any questions or concerns, or if they want to share like what they're going through and they want to help navigate, maybe talking to their parents or their friends or their family. They can ask me, or try to find a confidant, someone that they can confide in, so that they can create a close support system, because it's really important. That's more important than anything, is being able to have an outlet of an individual that can support you in the times of despair, of uncertainty, and in times of trying to understand yourself. Because when you're learning who you are, the society sometimes gives us these images that says that we're not beautiful, that we're not supposed to be loved, or that we're not human, or that we're not, that what we're feeling is wrong, and that it's, and don't let it be like someone who's like a very, very religiously driven individual, and then they want to spark like Bible verses, and, especially if you were born like Catholic, like I was, whereas like you're told that like, oh, if you do this, then you're an abomination and that you're going to go to hell. But the reality of it is we all have to come up with our own connection to the higher source, because we all are created differently, distinctively, and purposefully. And we have to try to understand that and be okay with that. And also try to express ourselves in a form of a level of safety. Make sure that safety is always number one. Regardless of how we feel inside, we should always navigate with the concern of making sure that we're trying to provide safety for ourselves, because there's people around us that will not understand who we are. They're not going to understand our life path. And sometimes people want to act violently because of what they don't understand and what they see. So we have to also keep in mind that these are the type of people that are around us, and try to navigate in a way of acknowledgement and awareness.
Oh my goodness, that was so beautiful and so well said. Honestly, the title of my book is Son of the Universe. And I named it Son of the Universe because it was when I finally really understood that it's my higher source, as you mentioned it, that I'm a son of the universe, and no religion and nothing, just understand my inner power, and that's what my book's about. It's about inner power. But please, Diane, go ahead with your next question.
It is clear that human beings still have a lot to work on ourselves. What message would you give to the parents who are watching us now to raise awareness, respect, and acceptance for all expressions of love in our kids?
I think that for all the parents that are out there that are not understanding their children with this new form of enlightenment, as I like to eloquently put it, I urge parents to come from a place of love and come from an eagerness of wanting to understand what their child is going through. They must express to their child how much love is given to them, and that what they're feeling is natural, and to not make them feel as if like what they're feeling is wrong, and to also make sure that they are articulating to their child that unconditionally, that they love them and that they appreciate who they are, and that they're willing to walk with them in this journey to try to help them understand who they are as people, and let them experience that together, because it's a lonely walk. It's a lonely walk. It's a lonely journey. And none of us as humans, we're not asked to be here. I think that the start of time, the generations, none of us was asked to be here. But when parents come together and have children, they're choosing to make babies. So they chose to make those children. So when those children are born, they have to look at those children and understand that that child didn't ask to be here. And so how they're expressing themselves is something that they're naturally feeling. So it's also new to them. So you have to understand that we're all new in this whole entire journey. So you have to look at it as like, let's learn together, because I know that this is difficult for you. And so that's what I would urge parents to want to look at and to see, instead of like trying to prevent them from living. And it's not, I don't even think it's about like, when we come out, it's about us trying, we want to just live our truth regardless of, what you say and what you do. Let me be subordinate, let me be rebellious. It's not even about that. It's about us as individuals finding a level of happiness within ourselves and being able to navigate that in a life that's worth living. Just as much as people that are what they consider cisgender straight people don't know why they're straight. They don't know why they're only attracted to the opposite sex. It's just something that's natural. So just as much as it's natural for them, it will be just as natural as for someone else who is not anything other than a cis-normative relationship that's created. So I think that's what I would want to like express to the world.
That was so beautiful, say. And
hold on. I think that I just feel like you was about to say something.
Cool.
Debbie.
Oh, no, that's beautiful. And it's such a great way to look at it. It's so true what you said about, I mean, the parents have you, and now, you know, they've had these children, and you have to love them no matter who. You brought them here, and it's not, I hate to say the word, it's not your fault. It's just that's who you are. This is the person, and this person has those feelings, which
it's tough. It's really tough. And I really think that I wish that parents would really understand that it's tougher on the children than it is in the parents. And I feel like the parents can sometimes come off as selfish and inconsiderate and be like, what about me? What about the parents? What do you think I'm going through? Well,
Right.
the thing is, you're not going through anything besides trying to accept me as a child, because that's what you're supposed to do. It's not about accepting bad behavior. That's one thing. But accepting a child for who they are naturally is something that parents should do, because naturally, most kids accept their parents for who they are. And
Right.
so the reality of it is if you take care of your kids along the way, then when they get to a certain age, then the kids will return the favor. And so that's the cycle of life as I see it. But
Oh, it's so true, because I was watching some videos this morning on YouTube, and it's what about the kids who are brought into a life, and the mom or the dad, you know, they fight, or there's an alcoholic parent, and, you know, and the kid is having to deal with that so much. It's like, okay, well, now this is who you have, and yeah, it shouldn't be any different. I mean, you have
it shouldn't be, but it's very difficult for parents to comprehend, and even humans to comprehend the life that's other than a cis-normative behavior. It's really hard for people to comprehend that. And I know what that's like, because there was a point in my life where I didn't comprehend what gay meant, what trans meant, and what non-binary meant. Like there was a point in my life I didn't understand any of that. And so society was putting on me that I was gay. So I was like, well, and they're putting on me that I'm a man. And just because I have, you know, characteristics of a man, that doesn't necessarily make me a man. It doesn't make me less of a woman because I have male characteristics. And if I have female characteristics, that doesn't make me necessarily more of a woman. And so I think that if we can get out of this narrative that everything needs to be distinctively and like physically one way for it to be what it is, then it allows people to be who they are for who they are.
You mentioned something very, very true, you know, and it's about your parents. And I know because my mom just came down to visit me, and we had this conversation where, to be 100% honest with you guys, it wasn't until I was 45 years old and until I was walking through the aisle to get married to my husband that I finally felt that my mom was proud of me for the very first time, you know, like really, really proud. And it was such experience. And after the fact, we talked about it, and she just told me, I didn't know what to do. You know, I was born in Mexico. I didn't know, I didn't know I have my whatever. And I'm sorry if I hurt you. And now that, of course, as an adult and everything's like, no problem, you know, but yeah, it's a journey, and it's a journey that parents and kids had to take together. And honestly, that's what my book is about. It's about acceptance. It's about knowing yourself. It's about knowing how powerful you are as a human being, how powerful you are in your soul. On that note, is any last comments that you would like to make for Republic?
I just think that I think there's a real understanding that us as humans, we are provided an unparalleled amount of limited potential within ourselves. We also are provided an unlimited amount of strength and resiliency and understanding. And so we have to make sure that we are just patient with ourselves, continue to love ourselves and be kind to ourselves, be more kind to yourselves in the wake of distress, in the wake of when things are happening to you that you just truly don't understand why. Just make sure that you create a support system of loving and amazing individuals that will love you unconditionally and allow you to be your best self.
Awesome. Thank you very much. And please, to all of the audience, we will have the GoFund page in the comments below. So make sure that you go visit the Race of Faith. See you guys later. Bye.